This is part F, and it's probably the last part for now. Once you finish here, you're actually having your asset into Unity, and the rest of it is pretty straightforward. Just emphasizing there with the little testing, I've rigged it so that making it so that the finger bone uh, is the parent for the main body of the gun. And then demonstrating, of course, with that test that, you have to consider now what to do about the parts that are still sort of moving freely, like that you might want to animate later, like the cylinder of the gun when it revolves to show bullets being loaded into the barrel, firing mechanism, and the hammers and the triggers. The hammer is probably a more important one, and that's why it's a good idea not to map the thumb bone as a sort of parent bone for the gun. Just using the sort of first index finger closest to the back of the hand. That way, whenever that bone is pointed, the gun goes with it. Again, you want to have a setup with some bones actually in the gun itself, its own sort of armature. This allows for the cylinder of the bullets to hinge out, using three bones, sort of in a C formation. That's a bare minimum you need. You want the gun to remain obviously fixed in its transform. The frame of the gun, you just want that barrel to pivot out. You parent the first bone in the gun to the body of the gun, and well, you can't really do that because you've already done that with the finger, but you have the sort of second bone in that location, and then you're able to do the sort of setup to make it possible, using the same technique with the shift select of the armature that you've just created, and then picking the bone in pose mode where it's blue, and here it's being applied to the actual cylinder for the bullets. And it's a fairly visual, intuitive process. Then when you pivot the sort of bone in between, having it swing out, you can see how the gun cylinder just nicely, just like a real gun, and that's going to help for the reloading animation. Even though we've got that sort of version of the cylinder there that's has all the bullets attached and joined, and those bullets don't pop out, but you can then sort of cut to the other version for your animation, and then have a two-part animation where first the bullets come out after shooting, sort of pivot out, and then the gun is suddenly turning to hold the gun, maybe pointed straight up in the air to kind of shake the bullets that they come out, or if you're using an ejector rod kind of system. The idea too of the cylinder, where are you sending the origin of its geometry? If you localize it like you typically do by applying all transforms, that means that the 3D cursor at 000 will be the origin. But for a cylinder to spin around on itself, you have to reassign the geometry back to its own, the origin back to its own geometry. At this stage, you're just getting everything selected, and you can see with the blue highlights on the right hand side, the only elements you don't want to obviously have are the light, and the camera. So you can shift select and then use the control select to deselect, or inverse select, or however you want to call it, unselect. Typical FPS export settings, copy everything for the texturing, being embedded, representing the materials and things. The selected materials are the ones that you're using in the armature. You can select deformed bones. Keep in mind that when you go into Unity, that part there, the skeleton that sort of doesn't have an arm, see there, you can see it's just the forearm. I was about to say. There's an error message, a couple geometries, said the pinky finger was a part of the gun somewhere too, that apparently had some like overlapping mesh geometry, so Unity just said, hey, not going to include it. But at first glance, it looks like the major sort of parts of the gun. I don't know which section of the gun it was, but I have the sort of cubic rectangular there placeholder for the gun, took it out, bringing in my asset there, the sort of, and it's high. It actually looks pretty good on the capsule model. It looks like a capsule's holding a gun, you know. So it's good. I mean, it's working. It's just that it's a little high. Now you might want it that high, but it depends what kind of game you're doing or what kind of weapon. Later on, I'll do aiming down sights and things like that. But now this is kind of like a sort of more casual kind of hip, shoot from the hip kind of style. Or kind of ready, like you used to see in a Doom game. Fire point's off, so you have to change the fire point to reflect your weapon, and that can be easily adjusted with a little bit of finessing, and no, it works. I mean, this is an asset again you made entirely from scratch. It's all original, but more importantly, at this stage, you can continue. I mean, it's working, so now you can texture the hands and do the other hand, the other arm.